Alright, so let's get this thing started up. So, let me get the live broadcast pulled up here on my screen over here. And basically what we're gonna do today, there we go. Alright, audio is perfect. Not perfect, nor is the video because I'm in it, but that's okay. So what we're gonna do today, just for a little while, we're just gonna kinda have a little discussion. Mostly about just kind of general people getting into vaping, people who are very curious about it, people who don't really understand what it is. One of the big questions that people who are outside of the vaping community looking in are constantly saying is, "Aren't you worried you're gonna blow yourself up?" and stuff like that. And we're gonna discuss that today. So let's get the live chat opened up. Let's get this all goody good. I'm almost wondering if I should try to change my camera here, because it seems like I'm super white. Like, crazy white. Let's see, is that better? Let's see if that helped the stream at all. Let's take a look. Let's see. It should help. It helps a little bit. Not a lot, though. Let's do that. Going the wrong way there, dude. Let's do that. What the hell does that even do? Nothing. It does nothing. Alright, dude, I think that's okay. I think we're good right there. That's a little bit better. It's not great, but it's better than it was, I guess. What's up, Mr. Hands? This guy already knows, one of the guys, if you guys are watching this afterwards, one of the dudes in the chat, he already knows all this stuff, but we're going to talk about it anyway. So where do we want to start? Let's just start off with the basics. Let's just start off with what exactly vaping is and how it differs from your average ordinary tobacco, cigarette, cigar, cigarillo, whatever. So one of the things that people always ask me on a constant basis is, how is it any better? Like, you're still smoking. You're still smoking something. You're dumb. It's nothing. Here's the difference, guys. This involves zero combustion. We are not putting a lighter up to this to get it to fire. This is literally no different than breathing the steam that comes off of boiling water on your stovetop. This is literally a mini stovetop. That's all that it is. There's nothing's getting lit on fire. Nothing is burning. It's literally vaporizing your juice. That's what it's doing. It's vaporizing a bottle of e-juice. It's vaporizing liquid. It's turning into steam, okay? So, oh man, I can't even show you guys. This sucks. But if you look in there, let me grab a little visual aid. So, right here, backwards, this little piece, oh my god, dude, I'm backwards. This little piece right here. See how there's two of them? There's one up on top. There's one on the bottom. It's all mirrored up. I'm getting thrown off. But for you guys, this is for all you guys that are new. But you see if there's one on the top, one on the bottom. That's called a coil. And basically what that's doing is taking power from the battery that's in this tube. It's creating a circuit, and it's heating up these coils, which it's just wire. That's all it is. It's just solid, non-stranded wire that you wrap up, and it gets heated up. It vaporizes the liquid. All that white stuff in there, that's all cotton. That's a wick. Okay, it's a wick. That's what it is. It's like one of those old-timey kerosene lamps. It's like that, same thing. That coil heats up the liquid that's in that juice, vaporizes, you breathe it in. See, so down here is your, we'll talk about this, but this is a mechanical tube, and this is your button to fire it on. This literally, you push this button up, it pushes the battery up, which makes contact inside here, it completes the circuit. So when you hit the button, it vaporizes the juice. Nothing's burning. Nothing is on fire. Nothing is burning, and that's your difference from cigarettes. The ingredients on the bottle. So for this particular juice, we are looking at propylene glycol, which is a completely food-based ingredient, as well as vegetable glycerin, natural artificial flavors, and nicotine. And that's it. That's it. Now, the thing that people always have a problem with is propylene glycol. People will always say, dude, that's in antifreeze, dude. So you're like vaping antifreeze. You know that? Okay, well then, next time that you go out and you buy, I don't know, a bottle of like Mott's apple juice, something like that, some type of a juice, any type of a fruit juice, you go look on those ingredients, and I will bet you that half of the bottles on that shelf have propylene glycol. It is simply a thinning agent. That's all that it is. It's not. It's not bad. They added it into antifreeze to make it less toxic for animals. That's why it was added to antifreeze. It's got nothing to do with what antifreeze does and how it works. It's in there as a thinning agent. That's all that it is. It's completely harmless. You can go check on any website. The FDA themselves will tell you that propylene glycol is 100% harmless. Vegetable glycerin, it's in everything. Everything you eat has vegetable glycerin in it. Granola bars, fruit snacks, again, juices have it. It's in breakfast cereal, everything. Everything has vegetable glycerin in it. And the same thing in the flavorings. That's obvious. That's all there is. Now when you vaporize this juice, it's not burning, so there's no actual chemical. What's the word I'm trying to think of? Oh Jesus! Oh God! There's no Oh, come on, hands, help me out, bro. What is it? There's no chemical reaction happening. Woo! Yeah, 8th grade science, bro. I'm an idiot. But so there's no chemical reactions happening. So if I was to pick up a cigarette, this is not a cigarette, it's just a visual aid. If I was to pick up a cigarette, this is a Sharpie. Don't smoke Sharpies, kids. There should be no kids watching this anyway, but if there is, don't smoke Sharpies. This is simply a visual aid. Treat this as though pretend this was a cigarette. You light the end with a lighter, the end lights, and that's it. Now what's happening is not only is that cigarette completely filled up with chemicals that are sprayed on the tobacco, they're going through 50 million different machines that are probably throwing all sorts of freaking, lubricants and all sorts of shit in the air, and they don't care. Why should they? You're gonna buy them and smoke them anyway. So there's all these chemicals getting thrown all over the place, and the tobacco companies themselves, they have just spray guns that blast the tobacco as it comes down the line with all these fucking crazy chemicals, dude. We're talking chemicals that come out of the exhaust of your car. We're talking, chemicals that are in the Drano that's under your sink. There's all sorts of chemicals they put in there to not only stop the tobacco from molding up. It stops. It allows the tobacco to not go bad. There's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of chemicals in one cigarette. And then when you light it, and all those chemicals heat up real hot from the flame, and then all those chemicals start reacting with each other, that number like quadruples, and now you're breathing in that basic 4,000, 3,000 chemicals, and then an additional 2, 3, 4, 5,000 different chemicals that are all getting melted together and causing all sorts of crazy shit. And that's why, you can be a smoker for a year. And if you go to the doctor, have your lungs checked, have an x-ray done, smoke cigarettes every day for a year, and go back into that year, your lungs are already destroyed. When it comes to vaping, when it comes to e-juices, as long as you're buying premium juices, I cannot say this about every juice out there because I know there's manufacturers that are in the vape game just to make a buck, and it's terrible, but they'll throw anything in their juice. Typically, they're pretty good. Regulations as they are how things are right now, not too many companies are really, people are pretty aware of what's in their juice, so really not a lot of companies are risking putting in random shit. Uh-oh. Why did the stream die? Uh-oh. Oh, that's good. That's weird. But so, what was I gonna say? So, what the fuck is going on here, dude? This is weird. I don't know why it's doing this. Let me do this. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it just dropped you. That was weird. If you guys are watching this afterwards, we're having some technical difficulties with YouTube. Not totally sure why, but hopefully we're good. So anyway, so like I was saying, so when it comes to e-juices, 99% of the companies out there are using the same 4 ingredients. They're using the propylene glycol, which from here on out I'm just going to refer to as PG, vegetable glycerin, which we're going to refer to as VG, natural, and artificial flavors. Those are your 4 ingredients. That's it. Since you're not lighting it on fire, you are inhaling those 4 ingredients, which there's nothing wrong with any of them. Unless you are like the better half of this channel, Mr. Infandus Vapes. He has an allergy to tree nuts. So if he was to pick up a juice that's got tree nut actual natural flavoring in it, he could very well go into anaphylactic shock from having a vape, which sucks because that means he basically can't try some of the best juices out there. Poor Josh. But so that's kind of what juice is. All right, that's kind of what's going on with the juice, and that's how this all works. All right. Now I'm using a mechanical mod to demonstrate this because it's a lot simpler to show you how these work than something like like the iJoy Captain or something like that. Which the difference being is that this is a mechanical mod. Okay, this is literally press the button. There's nothing that stops the way that the battery puts out power. The only thing that's working in any form of regulation for power is your coil. That's the only thing that affects the way that power is delivered. With a mod like this, you have all sorts of technology in the board that is stopping it from drawing too many amps, stopping it from taking in too many volts. You can adjust the wattage. There's all sorts of crazy stuff happening on these. And for a brand new vapor, somebody who's just getting into it, you need a regulated device. You want something that is going to be as safe as humanly possible. And that's kind of where we're going to jump into what this video is, which is about battery safety. That's the one thing I see all the time. Whenever I ask people who smoke cigarettes, I'm like, are you trying to quit? And if they say no, then I'm like, cool. Enjoy your cigarette, dude. Have a good one. But whenever I hear people who are like, oh my god, I can't stop quitting, dude, or I can't stop smoking, when can I quit? When can I quit? I always recommend vaping. And 99% of the time that I recommend it, people are like, no, I'm good because I know a cigarette's not going to blow my face off. It's fair enough. That's fair enough. But because I'm not going to try to be like, dude, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. As long as you are paying attention, as long as you are being safe and you are not doing stupid things with your device, your vape is as likely to explode as your cell phone is. Okay? So let me put that out there right now. There's so many things out there on on the news, and on the old Google box and on the YouTube and everything. I just said the YouTube. Getting old. But there's so much stuff out there. If you go onto YouTube right now and you type into the search bar, vape explodes. Right, yeah, no, yeah, exactly. A cigarette's not going to blow up in your face, but it is going to have your trachea removed and probably the lower half of your jaw. And you're probably going to die alone. But, that's hey, man, if you want to die with a fucking plug in your throat, dude, whatever, more power to you. And I'll be totally honest with you, man, right off the bat, I'll tell you right now, the reason that I was really like before you had even, and see guys who are watching this after the stream, the guy that I'm talking to right now is actually like the guy that told me to start vaping. He was like, dude, go buy a vape, you fucking nerd. And I was like, dude, Jesus. He's like, no, go get one, you loser. And I was like, fine. So huge shout out to this fucking guy. Oh shit, hang on, I'm sorry, bro. I don't know if you want this, but you got it just so you have it. But so one of the things when I started to want to quit cigarettes was all those commercials with the dude where he's in the shower and he's like, one thing to remember is when you go in the shower, plug up your hole. And he's in the shower like this, and he's got his back turned to the water, and I'm like, you know what I mean? Oh, it's disgusting. But so yeah, so as long as, so let's get back on track. So battery safety. So you know, the way that news portrays it, the way that these fucking idiot people, even people in the vaping community, make it look like these things blow up on a regular basis, and they don't. I have yet to see an instance of any vape device, mechanical or regulated. I've yet to see an instance of one exploding due to actual manufacturer defect. Now, there's a couple of mods on the market right now, like the brand new versions of the Smoke Alien. The brand new versions of these have actually been reporting that they're causing batteries to vent. Okay? Which there's a difference between a battery venting and a battery going to thermal runaway, which we'll talk about in a little minute here. So you need to do your research before, if you're buying your first mod, you need to do your research, you need to know what you're getting in, you need to know how to handle a situation if something is to happen. The new Wismec, the Wismec Exos, I think is what they're called. Those things actually have a problem with auto firing, where they are like this device, where they've got a button on the side. Oh, oopsies. Oh man, this thing was freaking on too. Where they have an issue where this button, you press it to fire it, you let it go, stops firing. Wow, their boxes, it's not this box, this is the iJoy Captain that's in my hand right now. These are so far a really nice mod. But the Wismec Exos, when you have it, you can have it sitting on the counter and walk away, and for some reason the mod will just turn itself on and fire. That's pulling a lot of amperage, and it's taking in a lot of amperage. It's overheating the batteries. And those batteries start to vent because they're getting hot. And at that point, you would typically put the mod down and you would let it vent, and you'd put it down and walk away and let it vent and do its thing. Well, because these mods are auto firing, and there's apparently no regulation against it, which I think is really weird. They continuously fire through the vent, which is causing them to just go up in flames and just melt down to nothing. Which is crazy. I don't know if you saw that, Hands. I'll send you that picture if you didn't see it. But you need to know what you're buying. There's a few brands out there that are super reputable, but if you're buying your first mod, do your research on everything. Don't just walk into a store and get the mod that they recommend behind the counter. Go online, find out what you want. I would recommend, if you're going to do it, go into a store where you can test out mods. Find out kind of where you are enjoying your vape, whether it's at 30 watts or 130 watts. Try out different devices there, see what you enjoy as far as, you know, the type of power you're looking for and how it feels and everything. Test out some flavors, and then look around online for what mods are out there that suit your needs. If that local brick and mortar store can carry it, then get it from them. Support your local business. But if they don't have it, just don't do what I did. I constantly buy mods like on a whim, and I end up hating most of them. So just do your research. But let's actually talk about like actual battery safety now, guys. Let's actually get into the meat and potatoes of this video after 20 minutes. Holy shit. So there's a couple things you have to know. Now, when it comes to just if you're buying basically just, you know, a standard like a smoke tank, like something like this, like a tank with a coil in it, and you get to hold your juice in there and everything. If you're buying just a setup like this, where it's just a mod in a tank, you still need good batteries, but you don't really need to freak out about, you know, how many amps they're rated for and, you know, stuff like that. As long as you get a good set of batteries and you know the basics, you're okay. Where you really start needing to worry about, like, amp ratings and stuff like that. And mind you, depending on what type of mod you get, I always recommend, for anybody buying just a standard regulated mod in a tank, I always recommend the Samsung 25Rs. They're 25 amps a pop. Most boxes are series boxes anyways, so it's not like it's... We'll talk about that in a minute. But I always recommend Samsung 25Rs. They're super nice batteries. If you're running like a TFV12 with those 0.12 like crazy amp coils, then you're okay. These are fine. These ones here, the brown LG HG2s, are super nice too, but they're a little bit lower amperage rating. So you kind of gotta do, you know, a little bit of homework on it. I always recommend 25Rs. I run these in my mechs. If my Sonys aren't charged, I'll use a Samsung. These are awesome batteries. These are the most common two batteries you're gonna find at your local brick and mortar, is the HG2s and the 25Rs. You might go into a shop. Oops, sorry if I just bumped the mic. You might go into a shop where they carry these ones right here. And these are Sony VTC4s. They also have the 5s, the 5As, and the 6s. They're essentially the same batteries. There's not a whole lot that's different about them. But these are kind of like your core batteries that you're going to find out there, okay? You'll notice they're all different colors. And that's kind of where we're going to jump into here. So we're not going to talk quite about like amp ratings and stuff like that right now. We're going to talk about like the basics. This is like the stuff you need to know, whether you're using a mechanical mod, a regulated mod, or whatever. This is stuff you need to know. This is stuff you need to pay attention to. So this is probably one of the most important things when it comes to battery safety, is what I'm going to talk about right now. And you'll notice this battery is green. Or what color is this battery? I'm colorblind, so I can't really tell you. I'm pretty sure these are green though. But it doesn't matter. So you'll notice like this one's green and this one's brown. And the reason, and if I flip them here, you'll notice that they're both silver on the inside. But what that green and what that brown is called a wrap, okay? And it's basically just a piece of heat shrink plastic that they slide over the battery, hit it with a heat gun, shrinks it all up, tightens it on the battery, and that's what protects the outside of your battery, okay? Just for the contrast, I'll use one of these HGs. Yes, hand says it's green, see, so I'm not that colorblind. Your wrap is what you need to pay attention to, okay? A bad wrap is usually the beginning of something bad, okay? Alright, so there's a video circulating around right now. I believe it was posted on the League of Scoundrels page on Facebook, where a fellow came into the store, and up here, so let me explain really quick what's going on with each battery, okay? Now, I don't think you can see it, but right up here, it's not really helping, but right up at the top, you can kind of see it there, there's a little ridge right here, okay? There's a little bit of a ridge. Now, that's the positive side of your battery, okay? Up here, well, this is really the positive side. Pretty much the whole battery is all negative casing, but up just on the top where this button side is your positive post. Now, if your wrap ever tears, ever peels back, anything like that, and it exposes any of this, if any of the portion of your battery that's wrapped ever becomes unwrapped, don't use it. Bring it down to your local brick and mortar and get it rewrapped. Because what can happen is a lot of times when you're using like when you should be using an external charger, don't ever charge through your mod. I don't care if it's an awesome internal charger. Use an external smart charger. eFest, Nightcore, whatever. Use an external. I heard sodas are really good too. I've yet to buy one. I might have to. But what'll happen is you put it in your charger. So let's say this is your charger. You pop it down. There's a little spring-loaded arm that slides up and down. Pop it in. You slide it in. You're good. Now what'll happen is a lot of times when you push it down and you put it in, you might not quite miss that positive charge post, and your wrap will kind of slide up against it, and eventually it's going to tear through it. Now, if that tear goes unfixed, if you just let it be and you keep using it and keep using it and keep taking it in and out of your mod and keep swapping batteries, you can expose both the positive side of the battery and the negative shell of the battery, okay? So, this is all negative. Up to this little button is where it's positive. If, for some reason, you let your wrap go where both of these parts of the battery are exposed, and you put it into a mod like a mech mod or something that's all internally metal, and these two arc out on like the wall of your battery sleeve in your mod or something like that, that's what's gonna that's gonna happen. What it's gonna do, I cannot talk today. What it's gonna do is it's gonna cause something that we call a hard short, where that's basically like running super beyond dangerous sub-ohm coil. It's like the equivalent of that, where all of your battery's energy is gonna be put out and taken in all at the same time. Okay, so that would be like putting like a 0.000000001 resistance coil or something like that. It's gonna take all of its energy and it's gonna expel it, and it's gonna try to take it in all at once, and your battery is going to vent out of the top. Now it's the first stage. There is a difference between venting and thermal runaway. I'm gonna talk about them both in a minute. But what's gonna happen is all that energy, if you look up in here, oh man, I really wish I had a good camera. But at the top, dude, one of my batteries have a little bit of a better visual aid here. Not really. I think the 25Rs do. Not really. But at the top of your battery, you've got your positive button up top here, and then there's little slits in between that little white insulator ring, which again, if any of your battery, guys, your insulator ring, your wrap, any of it, if any of it's compromised whatsoever, get it rewrapped. Do not ever roll the dice. Go to your brick and mortar and get it rewrapped. Any reputable shop, if you don't have the cash in your pocket, it usually costs like $2 or $3 to get it wrapped. If you walk into any reputable shop, and I'm not saying go out and get free wraps, this is not what I'm saying, but I'm saying in an emergency situation, any reputable shop will wrap it for you just to make sure you're safe, and then go back later with the money and pay them. I'm just saying, don't be like, oh man, you know, this is my only charged battery and I really need to vape, so I'm just going to use this until I get to the shop to get it rewrapped. No, don't do that. Just go to the shop and get it wrapped. Even if you don't have money, go back later with cash. It's this the dumbest thing you can do is to use a battery where the wrap, the insulator ring, any of it is compromised, okay? So what'll happen is in a hard short, where these slits are, underneath this button top, there's a little it's like a pressure plate, where if your battery is getting too hot and it starts to expand and all the gases inside start to build up, it's gonna blow open that like pressure plate, and all of those gases, all those hot gases, are gonna try to vent onto the top to relieve pressure. This is a safety feature. That's why they're made the way they are. In the situation of a hard short, it's beyond the point of venting, and that's where it's gonna go into what we call thermal runaway, where it can't even vent. There is so much pressure being built up so quickly, so violently, instantaneously, that the entire top half of the battery is going to work like a vent plate, where the whole battery is just going to expel all that energy immediately. Extremely hot flame. We're talking third-degree burns instantly. Hot flame. It's going to release an unbelievable amount of energy. These batteries, you guys, hold a crazy amount of energy. There was just a video that I sent to Hands in chat where a fellow put a battery in a mod that the wrap was bad. He had a hard short. The mod starts to smoke like they do when they vent, and typically that's what you get if you're going through a vent, which is not the worst thing in the world. If your battery is to ever start venting, you'll hear it kind of sizzling, making some bad noises. You toss the mod somewhere where it's not going to cause a fire, and you let it vent. And then you go back later once it's done, Get all new batteries, check and make sure that the mod is not destroyed, and it's not the end of the world. But thermal runaway, however, it'll smoke, and all that energy, this guy's mod starts blowing out sparks and flames like crazy. He drops the mod, and all that energy is being released in like pulses because the battery is still shorting. It's still trying to pulse itself. It's still trying to put out energy. So this kid's mod hits the floor, bounces up off the floor from the energy like a firecracker, starts banging out sparks and flames in midair, does some spin tricks, hits the floor, bounces up again, shoots itself up. There's a lot of energy in these batteries, guys, okay? There's a lot of energy. If anything is compromised with your battery in any sense, get either a new battery or a new wrap. Do not play with it. And that's what a lot of these things you see on the news are, is people doing stupid things with their batteries that they should not be doing. Right, it's crazy. He said it went off like a bottle rocket, and it did. And that's what happens. If you have a battery that's compromised and you use it and that battery shorts on itself, that is pretty much the worst thing that can happen. That's worst case scenario. And imagine that. Now, this happened while it was in the kid's hands out here. So while it started smoking, he was able to kind of toss it to the side. Now, he got lucky because the minute it started smoking, if he didn't throw it immediately, that thing would have gone off in his hands and it would have fucked him up. Like a lot of these guys you see on Facebook and stuff, there was a post on Facebook about a kid who was on his way to work, and his mod blew up in his hand, burnt his face all up, and he blamed it on vaping. And it was not. It was his fault. He was using bad batteries, bad coil. It was all his fault. But if the video I'm talking about, if that happened while that kid was taking a vape, all that energy would have gone right here, and he would probably be like on borderline of being alive and being dead. So that's your number one thing. If you guys are getting new into vaping, if you guys are brand new, dude, treat your batteries well. Do not just like beat the shit out of them. If anything looks wrong with it, bring it to a shop and get a new battery. Don't run it. Don't even play with it. That's like I got some batteries that I'm very careful with my batteries. You know, I haven't been building too long, but I have learned as much as there is to learn in the time I have, because I'm so anal, I'm so ADD, I'm so freaked out about batteries going bad. I've done as much research as there is to do. I've got a couple batteries here. You guys aren't really going to be able to see the problems with them, but I'm going to explain to you that you need to be this anal. I mean, people will be like, dude, those batteries are fine, just run them. Look, that can be fine for somebody else. But I am not down to find out if this battery is good or not the hard way, okay? So one battery I have here, there's a circled part, and you're not going to be able to see it because I can barely see it. But there's a circle section on this battery where the wrap has some, like, kind of indents, little nicks. Now, there's no actual battery exposed. There's no negative terminal, like the whole shell. There's none of that exposed from the wrap. But, you know, it could be the next time I slide this thing in my mech tube, it could catch and rip that open, and then now I'm dealing with an exposed negative terminal, which could arc out and cause all sorts of issues. So this battery, although a lot of people would probably say this battery's fine, I am not playing with it, and neither should you. Then I've got another battery here, which was from my mech tube, which this was partially my fault and partially the way that this tube that I'm running, this is the League of Scoundrels Connoisseur mod, and these are really nice, but you've got to be like a little bit kind of, I don't want to say really mega careful, but you do got to be careful with the way you press the button on these because of the little ball bearing 510s and stuff. They cause minor dimples on your battery, which isn't the end of the world. As long as they're not like hard dimples, it's what they do, and it's fine. However, what had happened with this one, for some reason, if you can see it on the positive post, you guys can't, I'm so sorry, there's a little black dot right there. That's actually arc marks that are like built up. Like sometimes you go to hit that button, as it's going to hit if you're using a hybrid mod, which way, this way, if you're going to use a hybrid mod, your battery's touching the bottom of the post on your RDA or your RTA, whatever. It's touching that directly. So as it's going to make contact, if it's not like instant, if there's any give at all, it'll arc. cause little electrical arcs, and that does happen. It's not like it's not supposed to happen. It'll happen on its way to making contact. It'll happen. But for some reason, this one arced up really quick, and there's like a layer of arc on there, and I'm no longer going to use this battery. I'm going to go get another one. So this one here, where the shell, where the wrap is just a little bit compromised, this battery, just get it rewrapped. If your positive post and your negative post are fine, and it's just the plastic wrap that's messed up, just go get it rewrapped. But if you've got a battery where the positive post is messed up like this one, or the negative post is messed up, get a new battery, okay? Don't play with it, guys. Don't be dumb. Don't go being stupid and trying to, get as much life out of a battery. Don't do it. Just get a new battery. They're cheap. Just get another battery. So I'm going to kind of talk about what a coil is and what it does right quick, and then we're going to be done for the day. Now, this is more towards when it comes to building. If you guys are newer into building coils, this is kind of more lean towards you guys. Dude, it's like 1,000 freaking degrees today, man. I am like actually dying right now. Really hope that's not hitting you guys. So what'll happen is when you go to build a coil, this is the difference between the two. So in this tank is a pre-built coil. You get it out of a package. I think I have a pre-packaged coil around here somewheres. Yes, I think I got one right here. Yes. Oh, it's all covered in juice because this RTA leaked. Awesome. So you go to the store, you get a little package like this, and in there's your coil. That's it. Take your tank apart, screw the new coil in, put your juice in, you're off to the races, no problem. But for those of us that really want to kind of customize, I guess you do, man. I guess you got to turn them shits on. So for those of us that really want to kind of customize our vape, which the coil options that are out there these days, man, it would be almost impossible to find a coil you didn't like as far as pre-mades go. But a lot of us enjoy building. I love building. I love playing with wire. It's become a crazy expensive hobby for me. I've probably spent more money on wire in the last like few months than I have on my computer in the last like couple of years. Oh, I know, steel and sex appeal. But so you can some coils you can kind of build up to just be real flavor cloud or real flavor coils, coils that are gonna fill your mouth with the densest flavorful cloud or flavorful vape you can think of. And other builds are made specifically for clouding, which is where things get a little bit sketchy, because in order to produce clouds, you have to put out a lot more power. Your coils require a lot more heat. More heat equals lower resistance, which is where you start getting sketchy low and sketchy territory. So for a daily driver for me, I run this mod. I don't build super low. I have, but I don't like that feeling of not being able to take 2, 3, 4 pulls in a row. I don't like that. A lot of these crazy low cloud builds are made for like taking one hit and then setting the mod down for 5 minutes, letting it chill out. They're not made for just. They're not made for it. Oh, I gotta tighten this up. They are super low resistance. So that's where we'll sort of start to talk about kind of why your battery's ratings are important. So basically what the main thing is when it comes to building coils, your main thing you kind of got to look out for is, man, I hate how this thing does this, dude. It's like supposed to auto adjust itself with the button, and it doesn't. There we go. So each battery, a lot of 18650s, 2700s I'm not going to talk about. But a lot of batteries have different amperage ratings, okay? So for example, this one here, the Samsung 25R, this is a 25 amp rating battery, okay? Continuous high drain, 25 amps. This LG HG2 is a 20 amp battery. And then the VTCs that I showed you before, the Sony VTCs, these are 30 amp batteries, okay? So basically that directly relates to your resistance, okay? So a 1 ohm coil, let's say, is going to pull almost nothing for amperage. You can sit there and you can puff on that thing non-stop. Even on something like an HG2, you can puff on that all day and the battery will like maybe get semi-warm after like 10 pulls, okay? However, it's also going to be a very underwhelming vape. It's going to be very little production. There's going to be almost zero heat. It's going to be a very, very underwhelming vapor production. And that's where you start getting into what they call sub-ohming, which is where you go below an ohm, which is kind of like the regular nowadays. It's not even really like its own niche anymore. Like, that's what it is. Like, every pre-built coil you get these days is like a 0.2. You know, there's no such thing as like a 1 ohm coil anymore. It just doesn't really happen. So your resistance directly correlates with the amperage that the coil is trying to pull. So if you were to put like, I don't know, let's say like a 0.05 build into something, which is extremely low, that you will never build that kind of coil. This is simply for an example. A 0.05 coil will be pulling like what? Like 50 amps or something like that. And even on something like a Sony VTC, which is basically the top dog for mechanical mods these days, even that is an extremely, extremely sketchy build. Okay. Now there's continuous ratings and then there's pulse ratings, which when you vape, you're pulsing the battery. The pulse rating for like a Sony VTC is realistically in like the 50 or 60 amp range, but that does not mean you can build up. You have 50 or 60 amps of headway. You really don't. You want to try to stay until you really know what you're doing with your batteries and everything, and you fully understand them. You want to stay below that battery's rating. So like if you have an HG2 20 amp battery, you're gonna want to try to build for like the 10-15 amps maybe. But that doesn't mean you can sit there and just chain vape all day long, every day, all day, every day. It doesn't mean that. You still have to pay attention, make sure your battery's not getting hot, make sure it's not getting, toasted up in your tube or in your mod, anything. But you've got to pay attention to what your batteries are. So, like, the build that I'm running in this one right here is like a 0.11 or a 0.12, I think. And that is almost like exactly 30 amps. And even a build like this, a lot of people tell you, oh, you can chain vape that all day. I don't trust it. My batteries start getting warm after 3 or 4 pulls, and I set it down. I'm good. I'm going to let it sit for a minute. Some people out there build way, way lower than that. They build like 0.06s, 0.07s. I'm good. For me, my personal cutoff is like a 0.11. And even 0.10s, those get too hot too quick for me. I prefer to stay in like the 0.15, 0.16 range. That's like the ideal vape for me personally. Yeah. So when it comes to building coils, a lot of people will recommend you go on to like steamengine.com, stuff like that. And it's basically what they call an Ohm's law calculator, which Ohm's law is basically a series of mathematical equations that will tell you what kind of amperage a coil is going to pull, what kind of wattage it's going to pull, stuff like that. You can go on to Steam Engine. Steam Engine works good, but if you're brand new to vaping, I'm going to 100% recommend a app on your phone called Vape Tool. It's awesome. The way they lay it out is amazing. You could choose whatever type of coil you're doing, whether it's a single coil or it's an octo coil, whatever. You can set it up for if you're doing like a Clapton, a fused Clapton, a staggered fused Clapton, a staple staggered fused Clapton, anything. You can choose your coil, and you can type exactly what type of wire you're using, what your inner diameter is, how many wraps, all sorts of stuff, and it'll give you a damn close to rough estimate of what kind of resistance your coil is going to pull. It's always good to know Ohm's law. It's always good to know the equations. But when there's apps out there that'll do it for you, you might as well use them. Don't risk messing up the math in your head. Just get an app. There's a ton of them out there. I recommend Vape Tool. It's awesome. But know what you're doing. Don't just, like, when I first started building, what had happened was I went into a shop and I bought some, like, pre-built Claptons. They were like 0.15s or 0.13s, something like that. And this guy told me to take just like a strand of 20 gauge and wrap it in between the already pre-made wrap. So it would end up being, now I know, it would have been like a staged Clapton, okay? And now that I look back and now that I know what's going on, that was like a 0.03 or a 0.04 build this guy had me do. Lucky for him, I was using regulated devices back then. So had I been using mech tubes, I probably would have run into some serious fucking issues. So you guys got to really pay attention to what you're doing. Be very careful. Don't play around with anything. If you're just getting into vaping, obviously buy a coil tank setup. Don't buy like an RDA right off the bat. Get into it with pre-built coils and tanks. Get a nice regulated mod. And if down the road you want to start building, awesome. Get yourself an RDA. Build on that regulated mod. And once you understand how amperage works, how coils work in general, then you're okay to move on. So one more last thing that I'm going to bring up, just to kind of talk about building coils. Is how your wire affects your build. Man, this D-Rud though. So look at resistance, and I'm going to specifically talk about resistance because it's basically the one thing that'll really get you in trouble. You know, if you're running on like a regulated mod, then you know you can pretty much put as big of a build as you want as long as the resistance is safe. But like on a mech tube, I can't put like a big chunky set of Claptons on here because there's too much metal for a single battery to heat up. It just takes forever and it's not satisfying. So look at resistance kind of like a garden hose, okay? So let's say you've got to go water your lawn or your flowers, whatever. If you have a tiny little thin ass hose, you're not gonna be able to spray that much water, right? Well, think of that hose as your wire. The thinner your wire, the higher your resistance, okay? So you got right, exactly. Oh god. So like a 32 gauge wire wrapped 5 times is going to be an extremely high resistance compared to like a 22 gauge wire wrapped 5 times, because that 32 gauge wire is super thin. It's really, really thin, and the power is trying to squeeze itself into that wire and make its way through, and it can't. So you know, think about it like a garden hose. You got this tiny little hose, little ass hose. All that water is trying to push through it, and it can't. It's all getting stopped by that hose. So think of that hose as wire. Now if you were to get some thicker wire, like some 20 gauge, and open up that hose, now the water can really start to flow. And that's amperage. The rate in which the electricity is flowing through the coil is what amperage is. Same thing as the water in the hose, okay? So if you're using 20 gauge wire, that electricity can move through that coil a lot easier. And that's where you get down to low resistance, because there's very little resistance stopping that electricity from moving through the coil, okay? And then when you start to do like, and that we're talking just like single wire builds, okay? So like 2 coils made of just single wire wrapped a few times. Now you start getting into stuff like parallel builds, where instead of having 1 piece of wire that gets wrapped, you set 2 pieces of wire next to each other and you wrap those together. So now let's say you had a 0.5 build before, and that was a single wire wrap. That was a 0.5 build. Well, now you're adding those wires in parallel with each other. So now you're doubling the amount of wire. So that means that resistance is going to now get cut in half. So now you're down to a 0.25 coil because electricity has a lot more room to make its way through to complete the circuit. It's a lot easier for it to complete that circuit, so it can really bang through the coil. And that's where people start to get in trouble because they use like a 22 gauge wire, and they're like, oh man, I really want to cut my resistance, and they add another wire, and then the resistance drops immediately. And you know, that's basically what cloud comping is trying to get as low as you can without blowing your face off, and that's just dumb. You can still blow really nice clouds and be safe. Like this here, I wouldn't even recommend this 100% as a build. Like a 0.11 I feel is like on that borderline of being sketchy. A lot of the guys down at the shop I go to, they run like 0.09s, 0.08s all day, and I think that's just too low. That's just too sketchy. But you really just need to pay attention to what you're doing. Don't just like go to the store, buy some wire, put an RDA, and fire it. You can't do that. You need to know exactly how wire affects resistance and what it's going to do to your build. Because you know, you could just go out and buy, you know, like I'm running 20 gauge wire in here, which is huge. Like I work with like 38 and 40 gauge, 42 gauge wire, and to be playing with 20 is, I feel like I'm trying to play with rebar. Like, it's ridiculous. But if I was to do like a parallel 20 gauge build, I would now be down in like instantaneous battery explosion territory. So you guys, if you're just getting into building, be very careful with what wire you're working with. I would recommend personally, if you're just getting into building and the only thing that's available to you battery wise is like 25Rs and HG2s, go ahead and get yourself like some 24 gauge, maybe 22 gauge if you're just doing single wire. But if you want to like do parallel builds and stuff like that, get like 24 or 26 gauge Canthal, and you can start playing around with that. You could do like, you know, 4 or 5 wraps of like 26 gauge in parallel, and you're looking at a nice little build, low ramp up, good production, stuff like that. But don't just go out and like buy the thickest wire you can find. Don't do that. Kind of meet it in the middle. Do 24, 26, something like that. But again, so I'm gonna get off here. I just wanted to kind of really briefly mention things about batteries, because honestly, guys, the most important thing when it comes to vaping is keeping your batteries maintained. That is the most important thing. If you just are constantly throwing your batteries around, things are gonna go bad. I think I'm going to go back to a parallel build myself, man. Like, this 20 gauge is nice and all, but I don't know, dude. I don't think you can beat, like, a 24 gauge parallel. I just don't think you can. I think parallels are where it's at. More surface area, you save yourself because you get to play with, like, a little bit of the lower resistance, but not too low. I think parallels are where it's at. As long as you're using the right wire, guys. But yeah, just make sure your batteries are good. Don't ever put a battery in your pocket, ever. Ever, ever, ever. I've heard a ton of stories where people just throw batteries in their pocket. Go out and get yourself a little battery case, okay? I've got mine labeled with a do not touch thing because people at work take my batteries and they play with them because they think they're cool. Well, some kid dropped one of my batteries one day and didn't tell me. He just put it back in the package. Now, luckily, I had noticed that there was a big dent on the positive post. And odds are, if I put that battery in one of my mech tubes, the internals could have been heavily damaged, and I could have ended up with a hole in the side of my face. All because homeboy just decided he was just going to touch a battery and didn't say anything. That's fucked up. Don't put a battery in your pocket. If you got a pocket full of change, you throw a battery in there, those coins all connect, and somehow one coin ends up on the negative, one ends up on the positive. Well, you got yourself a coil sitting in your pocket discharging. Not safe. Just make sure you have your battery someplace safe, somewhere in a case, something like that. Be very careful with your batteries. Again, if the wrap is torn at all, dinged, dented, scratched, get a new wrap. If the battery itself is compromised, get a new battery. Don't play around. That's why these mods all explode. That's why you see this stuff on the news, is because people are treating batteries very badly. They're mishandling them. And then you end up with some kid saying that vaping ruined his face. It's not good. But I think that's it, guys. If anybody, dude, my nose is runny as hell today, man. This is killing me. If you guys have any questions in the future or anything, if anyone stumbles on this video and they don't quite understand what I'm saying, I'm running low on water, dude. That makes me sad. If you guys stumble on this video and you're like, dude, I don't understand what you're saying, because you know, I'm not very good at explaining things, but I'm trying. And you know, if you guys are like, dude, I don't understand any of this resistance shit, I don't get it, feel free to leave a comment, and I will do my absolute best to respond. The other half of this channel, Mr. Infantis Vapes, he will try to respond. If we don't respond to you guys, don't just like go out and buy something. Try to keep yourselves safe. Don't do anything stupid. Don't like just jump into something. Keep yourself safe, alright? Be very safe. And that's pretty much all I got for you guys today. So keep your batteries good, have a good mod, don't be stupid, be safe. And that's all it is. That's what it is. Be safe, use your head. So that's it. I'm going to go build myself a parallel build. Throw in this tube. I love this setup, man. I really do. I absolutely love this setup. Yeah, guys, keep yourselves safe. Don't be dumb. Use your head. If you have questions, ask questions. This community thrives on people asking questions. We would much rather, I would so much rather explain to you what resistance is for an hour straight until you get it, than to just have somebody go out and buy wire and wrap something. We don't want to see anybody get hurt. This community does not want to see anybody get hurt. And the more people that get hurt, the more that the vape industry gets set back, and the more fire, or the more gas that gets added to the FDA fire. And we don't want that. We want people's lives to be bettered by vaping. We don't want it to disappear because kids can just walk into stores and buy mech tubes. That's bad. Know your shops, know the products they have, do your research, know what you're doing, alright? And the number one thing, guys, is keep your batteries in good condition. Don't let them go bad, and if they go bad, just replace it. So, I hope you guys all have an awesome 4th of July. I'm going to go play some games here in a little bit, and I'll probably see most of you guys over there. I think that's it. Let me give you one more of these, and then we're out of here.